also would like to thank Dr. Beatrice Koch-Gozitsky for putting this panel together and for running it so well this morning. As we watch all these amazing developments, one wonders, if I want to get as an investor into this space, where should I go and invest? If I want to look at where innovation comes from, what will bring it? So our next speaker is really a national expert on the field, Mr. David Wurzer. David is an Executive Vice President and Chief Investment Officer of Connecticut Innovations. David is sitting on the board of 4 startups, and his main role is primarily to help innovative companies in 4 ways. Connecticut Innovation helps companies with equity, with debt, with grants, and with strategic guidance, all of which have already generated some amazing results in many startups. They typically go on the seed stage and help the companies do take off. So I would like Dave, where's Dave? Please give Dave a big hand. Okay. Okay. And if you can give us in the next 7-8 minute kind of an overview of where things are, that'd be fantastic. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm old enough that I need a few notes, so I'll use the podium. It'll be fine. You're probably wondering why some guy from Connecticut is here in a room full of MDs and PhDs, and I'm an investor. I did not take a wrong turn on I-95 this morning, but in fact, and you might be surprised at this, Connecticut Innovations has been one of the most active healthcare investors in not only Connecticut, but in the country for early stage investment over the last 2 years. And by early stage, I mean very early stage. Half of our companies have no revenues. The majority of them are trying to proof of principle. Maybe they're at the alpha stage or the beta stage. So these are early stage companies, but these are the innovative companies that are the next generation of the digital or disruptive health that we've been talking about this morning. Is this the clicker? I don't know. Is this the clicker? Could use a little help here. Next slide, please. There are about 15 of them. Well, I will continue. So I'm just going to tell you 2 minutes about Connecticut Innovation so you know where we're coming from. And then I want to speak about trends that are affecting our investments. We have about 100 portfolio companies at the present time. 40% of those are in healthcare and bioscience, and another 40% are in IT and software, which crosses quickly over to healthcare. After talking a little bit about Connecticut Innovations, I'm going to spend a few minutes on the drivers and the trends that we see in early stage digital healthcare. Much of that has been discussed this morning, but there are a few things I want to emphasize. And then lastly, I'd like to talk about a few of the portfolio companies that are consistent with the trends that we are seeing and interesting investments that we've made. And if we're going to do this and do it this way, I could probably walk around. Okay, not a problem. I'll keep going if that's all right. Connecticut Innovations is 25 years old. We actually had our seed money come from the state of Connecticut, about $60 million over 1989 to 1995. We have been self-sustaining on our returns, our venture-based returns, up through 2011. Our IRR to date is 16%. We not only make investments, but as I tell my people, the real work starts after you make the investment. We provide coaching, we take board seats, we are advisors, we provide innovative incubator space, we match federal grants, we provide leadership on syndicates for investment. So we go from start to finish, cradle to grave with a lot of these companies. We usually enter, as Avi said, at the seed or even earlier pre-seed stage. We generally lead our investments. We've led 80% of the first rounds for technology companies in the state of Connecticut in the last 5 years. So we get them started. We work primarily with co-investors such as angel groups, family offices, other early-stage venture capitalists. And we're really in a situation where there aren't that many players around, and companies are very, very interested in working with us. We require the headquarters in Connecticut because we have a dual purpose. We won't be alive if we don't have returns, but we must grow and retain jobs in the state of Connecticut. So we have two purposes. We're technology focused 100%. We work a lot with the University of Connecticut and Yale University. Approximately 30% of our companies are spin-outs directly or indirectly. And Connecticut as a state is very important in a number of ways to healthcare, not only the universities and the centers of excellence that we have with our hospitals. We also have the Jackson Labs genomics facility located in the state. That's been a build-out taking place over the last couple of years, working on genetically modified mice, including personalized mice, so that one day, before a drug goes into you, it can go into a mouse with your genome. We also have two of the largest payers in the country headquartered in Connecticut, at Aetna and Cigna, and large presence on behalf of United and other payers as well, Anthem as well. So we have a state where we have a significant number of ex-employees, professors, MD, PhDs, et cetera, who are looking to start businesses in a very disruptive way in digital health. As we don't have the slides, I'm going to move on to what we think the drivers are in terms of our investments in digital health. We've all heard about the wave of baby boomers coming our direction. We've seen the numbers this morning. We've also heard from Senator Daschle the impact on federal dollars of Medicare and how it's grown over the last 50 years. The statistics I have here are over 15% of the federal outlay going forward will be for Medicare. It's a huge number. One of the guys in my office says, all we see are curves that go this direction. Maybe some of this technology can flatten the curve. And that's our mentality in making these investments. We also are very focused, and this was just mentioned, on chronic disease management. The statistics recently that we've seen are not only that 80% of older adults will have a chronic condition, but 50% will have at least two, and that 70% of the healthcare costs for those seniors are directly related to chronic conditions. We have investments in, for example, diabetes management, and not just managed care, but earlier diagnosis, pre-diabetes diagnosis. Oh, that's wonderful, thanks. We can move a number of slides ahead. Will this work now? We'll keep trying. Go a few more slides ahead if you would, please. Apparently I cannot. Oh, back up, back up, back up, back up, please. Back up. One more. Thank you. And I know we've talked a little bit about long-term care, hospitals at home, a number of these items. We have investments in Alzheimer's as well, and in dementia management. And finally, this last statistic on this slide I thought was very interesting. It came from Boston Consulting Group, and they said that they believe mobile health could reduce overall elderly care expenses by 25% with the number of things that are being implemented today. So if we go to the next slide. I can now? Thank you. That's excellent. Go to the next slide. We've talked a little bit today already about how tech-savvy the boomers are. You know, these are recent numbers from an Accenture survey. There were a lot of them were surprising to me. But you know, it really comes down to these seniors are becoming more tech-savvy. Think about the fact that the baby boom generation, the first of the baby boom generation, I think was 2010, 2011, actually became 65. We've got another 18 years of baby boomers coming behind that, all right? And already there's a demand for technology, there's a demand for knowledge, a demand for control over treatment decisions, access, and controlling costs. And as we've seen cost shifting and increased deductibles, we're seeing that as well. And an important item to think about with the baby boomers, they have the time. They have the time to research. They have the time to utilize this technology. They have the time to effectively manage their own care. And so with a tech-savvy group with the time to do so, we really are going to have a patient-centered system, we believe, in the future, and we're focusing our investments in this direction. This is just a quick slide for you to understand the dollars that we believe are heading towards digital health funding. The numbers are significant over the next 3 years, and it's certainly based on the drivers we've been talking about. And where are those going to be invested? I think Rock Health was one of the sponsors today, so this is excellent. Obviously, for those who can't read the small print, analytics and big data, consolidating EMRs, tying in genomic data is one of the top numbers. Consumer engagement, impacting reimbursement, as we know, quality, satisfaction, all things impacting Medicare reimbursement going forward. The next category, digital wearable medical devices, and we've made some significant investments here. I'm going to talk about one in a moment. And then telemedicine follows there. We've talked a lot about it this morning. Personalized treatment protocols, we've made some investments there. And then finally, population health and quality. So just for your information, these are the trends that I focus my team on in looking at digital health. First of all, absolutely focused on personalized diagnostics. We have an investment in a company that actually using printing, and I guess everybody's calling it 3D printing these days, they actually manufacture skull replacements for people with significant skull injuries based on their individual characteristics, using 3D printing. We're seeing things in the tool space in a major way. We're seeing wearables and digital kinds of readouts. We've made investments in those. We're seeing, as I mentioned before, a lot of focus on mobile, and we're investing there. Growth in healthcare spending and the need for cost-saving solutions, this is never going to change. We're always going to have these opportunities. But I have to say, it ties in well to the next bullet. Adherence, medical adherence technologies. We've seen 5 companies come to us with solutions to get people to take their prescriptions. They have ranged from bothering them in every form, from mobile to telephone to going and knocking on their door, to giving them casino chips if they take their prescriptions on a daily basis and enter it into the computer. We're seeing all kinds of approaches here, but you've probably heard the statistics. 33% of all scripts are never filled. And of those 2/3 that are filled, 70% do not follow or take them as directed. So a lot of it's education, a lot of it's side effect profile, a lot of it is a number of things. But these are significant issues and areas that have focus, and we have an investment in one of these companies as well. And then we've all talked about the emergence of big data. One of the trends we're seeing is the shifting with accountable care, not only of a lot of performance measures, but collection, believe it or not. Provider groups are being asked to take risks. They're also being asked to take on people who have high deductible plans. And that means that you're only going to collect from the patient. But how do you know that you can actually collect from the patient when they're sitting there in your office? So there are a lot of exposures that we're looking at. And certainly regulatory and reimbursement continue to be issues that we're focused on. I mentioned a little bit of this before. We look to invest in Connecticut's technology strengths. We're trying to leverage Connecticut's technology strengths. And our investments primarily are leveraged by the co-investors as well. And I should emphasize, leverage is a constant for us, both leveraging the technology and the companies in the state, but also leveraging 100% of the dollars coming in from VCs and others, and most of that's coming in from out of state. We have an average of 3-to-1 leverage for our investments, and we put together a lot of those syndicates because we work with those venture capitalists and family offices and angel networks regularly. So just want to finish by showing you quick slides on a few of the companies that we've invested in. This technology came out of Cornell. We relocated them to Connecticut, 12 people. This is a wearable, and it's so wearable, it has leads and looks like a little iPod that goes in your pocket. Long duration, low intensity ultrasound. We've all been to, say, chiropractors or others for a little bit of ultrasound. They put the goop on you, and then it feels good for 10 minutes. Imagine wearing it for 4 to 8 hours. This is prescription driven. So now doctors can prescribe something and have you come back after a week or two. But this has been a critical one for us, and this company's approved on the market, began selling in March in Trumbull, Connecticut. Isoplexis, this is a technology that came out of Yale University. Very interesting technology, but they're really at the cellular level. There's a lot of work being done at the cellular level right now. They're using digital technologies to evaluate the protein secretions at a cellular level, and primarily focused on oncology at the moment. Innovation. This is a company that's totally focused on patient engagement and improving the in-hospital patient experience using the existing flat screens in the hospital and utilizing them in many different ways to keep the patient's caregiver who's sitting at the hospital bedside, everyone involved, and we've got a number of customers for this business as well. This is CircleLink Health. They're very focused on medical adherence, and their approach is not casino chips. We didn't invest in that one, but their approach is actually on the mobile side in a major way, and they're doing quite well so far. They have some specific focuses in terms of markets. And lastly, we've all talked about mobile health today. We all know that pads, we know that phones, we know everything is in the hospitals as well. Okay? This is actually a technology that within less than 1 minute provides a chemical-free disinfection of any mobile device being used in any treatment setting, and also charges it at the same time with a high-speed charger. So with that, I'll take your questions. That's a little bit of a flavor of what we're investing in right now, Connecticut Innovations. Thank you.
Any questions?
I know I stand between you and lunch.
Any questions? Okay, David, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Good luck with
Appreciate it.
the
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, I have the great pleasure of introducing a giant who is disrupting healthcare for aging Americans in his own mindful way. Keith Mitchell is a former All-Pro linebacker for the New Orleans Saints, Houston Texans, and Jacksonville Jaguars. Unfortunately, Keith's football career ended prematurely when he suffered a spinal cord contusion and was left paralyzed. However, the end of Keith's professional football career was the beginning of an even greater chapter in his life. As part of his successful rehabilitation from his injury, Keith developed a passion for yoga and meditation. For the past 10 years, Keith has brought his yoga and mindfulness training to current and former NFL players. Instead of bringing pain to the New York Giants and New York Jets, Keith says he now brings peace. Military veterans, he's been to the White House, and earlier this month through Yoga on the Hill to Congress, where his message was, not left, not right, just balance. For too long, retired NFL players and military veterans have suffered neurological and psychological complications as a consequence of their professions. For many, their suffering has been in silence. They've had no program that addresses both their physical and psychological well-being. Today, Keith Mitchell and his Light It Up Foundation are announcing a program to change that. Keith.
Good. Thank you so much, Dr. Dorsey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure to be here with you guys. First in the yoga world, when we come into a new space, we start by saying namaste, which means peace. So you don't have to worry about me, like Dr. Dorsey said, tackling anyone. You know, I'm not playing football anymore, so you have to worry about that if you don't agree. But it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm very excited about what we're here to promote, our care plan. As Dr. Ray said, I started my journey through football. I played the linebacker position. It was, you know, more like the more aggressor type position. And my last season, which was well, actually, I go back. I played 6 years in New Orleans, played a year in Houston, and then I went to Jacksonville after that. But my first season in Jacksonville, which was my last, was where I kind of started my real journey, and it's the journey going within. And in that, making a tackle I had made a million times. on this particular tackle, I go into the guy, I read the play, make the tackle. Typically, defense gets up for momentum for the team. And in this particular place, I was on my back. And while I was on my back, you know, certain things are coming to you, like get up and you know, do what you normally do. And in this, my body wasn't responding. And as I'm still laying there, I'm still talking to myself, like, you know, get up. And my body's not responding. You know, it's like it's a very funny thing when you know your body's in trouble or you're in trouble and you can't feel anything. Your mind is sensing that something's wrong, but you can't feel anything. You know, a lot of people talk about an out-of-body experience. That was my first one, if you believe that. But in that, I was diagnosed with a spinal contusion. My C2 through C4 fused together, and after that, I suffered about a 6-month period of paralysis. And in that journey, I was taught meditation. One of the therapists mentioned to me the academics of what it takes when you breathe from the diaphragm. On the inhale, the diaphragm pushes up, and on the exhale, it pushes down. We take about an average of 21,000 breaths a day. So we have 21,000 chances to nurture, to heal ourselves. And the power of that, you know, dealing with from one moment being this physically active individual to being completely helpless, brought me to a place. And through my meditation, it gave me the ability to kind of like observe it, but not so much judge it. You know, the idea of success, when we talk about success, we're like, okay, as a kid, we're like, I'm dreaming to have the house, I'm dreaming to have the cars, and this is going to make me happy, right? So I had all that. But the only thing about it, I was confined to one room. I couldn't drive at that time. So I'm like, where's my happiness? So in this, it made me really go within and really connect within. And in this, we started developing and seeing life a lot different. I posted a quote, I don't know if some of you guys are on the social media, but I talk about, you know, as you teach the asana is the actual physical practice of yoga. As you teach the meditation or do the meditation, you do the poses, you know, something happens. And in that happening, you start to look in and see yourself. And as you begin to see yourself, you begin to see outward. And for me, that created purpose. And for my purpose, we created the Light Up Foundation. And the very interesting thing about today and sharing with you what we're up to with the University of Rochester is so amazing, because this doesn't feel like work. You know, it feels like play. You know, when you can connect to giving back and like helping people change their lives. It's like, man, I wish I was doing this the whole time. You know, it's just like, I wish I knew about doing this and connecting to this the whole time. But that's okay, because we're here now. And so what we've done, what we're facing with, we got 350,000 veterans who are suffering PTSD from the Afghanistan war. We have 22 veterans who commit suicide a day. You know, 7 out of 10 homeless that you see on the street are retired veterans. 98% of those are suffering mental health issues. So what we're doing with this, we collaborated with the University of Rochester. When I found those guys, I was introduced to Dr. Dorsey and his team. I was like, you know, I was just unbelievable, just blown away with how they're so forward-thinking in the holistic realm. And I was like, these doctors are not only so amazing in what they do, but they also do it in their own lives. So this created the true connection to want to really collaborate with them. And what we came together with is a care plan. And how also how I actually got introduced to the veterans concept is Congressman Tim Ryan brought me in, and I saw the comparisons of like how the veterans and the sports guys was so similar. The identity crisis, the transitional period that's needed to kind of get acclimated to life after playing sports, to life after serving time in the military. It made so much sense. Just the other day, we had a player who was kind of juggling with his career, you know, completely commit suicide. He hung himself. We've seen so many more of those types of episodes happening. I believe we can address this with the care plan. And what the care plan is It's a 3-year care plan. We're actually bringing the players into a different element. We're going to do the first 2 days of the diagnosis and so forth, and then the 3 days we're going to do like more or less a yoga meditational type retreat. And in that we're going to have different discussions and so forth, where we can really kind of open up and create that space that can allow us to kind of connect to that healing. So many of the men, or the mental or the masculine mentality is like, I got this, you know, I'm under control, you know, I don't want to show vulnerability and so forth. So many of the guys are like so in those places of like, you know, I'm the only one in this world suffering from this. And I believe if we create that platform where guys can actually open up and talk about it and realize that it doesn't take away from my masculinity, it just empowers me more. It's that 50% that I talk to a lot of guys about, is, you know, that 50% that we suppress, that compassionate, that nurturing side. We get a chance to expand into those places of those realms like that, and therefore creates a more empowered man. A lot of times also I see the athletes who transition, you know, they become great leaders in their respective game, great leaders in their respective regiments in the military, but once those times are done, then they're done. But these guys have created within them such roles in their communities, leaderships in their communities, that we need them right now. Our community needs them right now. So we get a chance to empower the leaders that already proven themselves, but kind of at some point, for whatever reason, lack the confidence of going outside their sport, going outside their realm of serving time in the military and so forth. So we get a chance to really impact that level of leader. So again, we're very excited about what we have going on. So the 3 days are going to be more or less like a yoga retreat setting. So we're going to, so after that 5-day retreat there, we'll have them come back after 12 months, and we'll do it again, and we'll be able to monitor the progress. And not only will we be able to monitor the progress through the concept of telemedicine, we can do the follow-through. We can stay connected with them. And in that, I see guys who are, wherever they are, kind of finding their own connection. Because again, the thing about the athlete or the military guy is they have a certain level of discipline. And once you give them a format, an agenda, I believe they can stay committed to that. And so we're able to scale that 350,000 through the technology of telemedicine, which makes us so unique in this place right here. So it's the perfect marriage between the Eastern concept and the Western technology that we have here available to us. So I'm very excited about what we have and what we're doing. And yeah, I think it's going to be great. Thank you guys for listening now. And now, I get the privilege to really introduce somebody, in my opinion, that embodies all of these things that we're talking about. The power that the mind has, the ability to like overcome and not let circumstances define you. I had the privilege to meet this young man, and I was blown away. I was first blown away by the story when I saw the videos and so forth. And then I got the privilege to meet him. But without further ado, Dr. Brad Beck. Thank you.
Hey, man. All the way, big guy. All right. Well, I wasn't a football player when I injured myself, just a competitive cyclist. And cycle meets car. Usually the car seems to win. But what I want to talk about are just two things today. First, that there is an epidemic of chronic neurologic disease. Hyped in all the press, of course, is dementia and Alzheimer's disease. But the good news, bad news, is that people are surviving strokes a lot longer. We have 800,000 strokes a year in the United States, 34 billion right now. And as people live longer, we're going to accumulate a lot more patients with strokes. Spinal cord injury, like myself and what happened to Keith, is quite a bit rarer, about 80,000 a year. But they used to have a life expectancy of 10 years, now almost normal. I had a life planner figure out I'm going to die at age 82 according to my life planner. So I needed to make sure I had enough money to survive because I do need those home health aides. And Seth doesn't know, $17 an hour is not enough. I have to pay mine $20 or $25 an hour, and Memorial Day weekend, you got to pay double. So it's pretty expensive having these aids. And we are going to witness, I think, an enormous need to take care of people with chronic neurologic disease. And what begins to happen with people is they develop behavioral health problems. They get depressed, and they have multiple comorbidities. So spinal cord injury patients are 3 to 4 times more likely than age-matched controls to die of cardiovascular disease because they're depressed, they're socially isolated, they don't exercise, so they get obese, and they don't follow good nutrition. So we're creating, by our abilities to help people survive the acute injuries, very chronic ones. So we need some disruptive technologies. The current approaches to this aren't going to work. And I was the CEO at the University of Rochester for the last 8 years, but starting January 1st, I decided to pursue a new career and develop a neurorestoration institute. And the restoration piece is the key part, not neuro-rehab, it's really restoring. And what I want to restore is function. And you can restore function in a lot of different ways. And I'll tell you the 5 ways we're going to work to restore function, because I think there are many, many more, but at least these are 5 that I think encapsulate a lot of what you've heard this morning already. So for example, devices. Part of the reason I did this is I'm a cardiologist by training. And in the 80s, when I was a fellow, I saw the first angioplasty ever done in Boston, and then I saw the first stent put in. We were treating people with these absolutely horrible drugs for their arrhythmias, and then we got implantable defibrillators. AEDs are in every airport now, and we have enormous success now in out-of-hospital rescue, but neuroprotection doesn't work very well. So people show up brain dead with their hearts beating. So devices are about to dramatically change the field, and the same companies that were big in the heart, like Medtronic, are now going to be big in brain and spinal cord and all kinds of nerve regeneration. So I think devices are going to be a huge part and very disruptive technology, as you've seen in many different areas. Second one is pain. Chronic pain is a huge part of our society. As people get older, in many, many ways that people have pain, and we're going to start seeing devices used to treat pain. We're going to have mindfulness. So what Keith was talking about, having control over your body allows you to have control over your pain. And so we need much more cost-effective and, again, disruptive approaches to treat pain, because a lot of the current pain medicines, the side effects long-term, particularly in the elderly, are very severe and contribute to a lot of morbidity. Third area, which is the holy grail, of course, are stem cells, because we want to actually regenerate tissues. As you know, the Miami Project's been working on this for a long time. They had to stop one trial, but they have another one underway. But personally, I think it's going to be a long time before stem cells make it as a real transplant and organ regeneration. But there are drugs that can help mobilize stem cells. And there are resident stem cells in tissues. And it may be that we can help people restore their health by mobilizing those stem cells and getting them to do things that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do. Neuroplasticity is a big word, but it's also a terrific opportunity for us. The oldest form of that is Braille. So you substitute the ability to touch for an inability to see. I can't feel my legs, but I ride a tricycle, but my tricycle has the pedals in front of me, so I can see my legs turning, and I can keep them going at a really good pace, even though I can't feel anything in them, and I don't know where they are in space. I can see where they are. And bicycle is kind of nice, because once you get that rhythm going, it's pretty easy. Walking is a lot tougher than bicycling, a lot more degrees of freedom in terms of what can happen to you. But there are going to be an enormous number of opportunities to do substitution and to take what's left after a stroke or after a spinal cord injury and optimize it, either using devices or, in some cases, training people to be able to reroute their circuits. And there's an example of this called blind sight. When people have a stroke in the back of their brain, they lose the ability to see in one half of their visual field. but there's some nerves that are still alive there. And if you flash a red light in front of them, they actually can pick up some of those red lights. And you can train them over time to pick up more of those red lights. And over time, they actually move their visual field deficit over. So they regain some binocular vision. That's all due to cognitive retraining. So a big theme is using your mind to restore your brain and body. And I think Keith was talking a lot about that. Yoga is one way to focus and to concentrate, to get to that meditative state that allows you to then really focus on this. And the final one is integrative medicine. It's sort of the new term for complementary and alternative medicine. Yoga is one example. And I myself have been on a pretty